It's funny. People think that if someone wants you to stay, they'll just come right out and say it. Please don't go, I can't lose you. But what if I told you that avoidants rarely use words at all? Instead, they send signals, sometimes so subtle you almost miss them, that reveal how desperate they are for you not to walk away. The irony is that the very people who push you away the hardest are often the ones fighting the most to keep you silently in their lives. If you don't recognize these signs, you might believe they don't care, and you'll leave never realizing they were screaming inside for you to stay. Today, I'm going to show you exactly how avoidants beg you to stay, without ever uttering a single word, so you don't mistake their silence for indifference. It's easy to believe that if someone cares about us, they'll come right out and say it, that they'll be brave enough to admit, I want you in my life, I can't lose you. But avoidants don't work like that. Their entire way of surviving love and connection has been built around keeping their cards close to their chest. So instead of direct words, they use behaviors, subtle, almost invisible, to keep you near. One of the biggest signs you'll notice is that they start showing up in your space more often. It might begin with small, seemingly insignificant gestures. Maybe they text you out of nowhere with a meme, a song they think you'll like, or even just a casual, "Hey, how's your day?" It doesn't sound like a declaration of love, but it's a tether, a way to keep themselves in your world without fully stepping into their vulnerability. They might even pop up where they know you'll be, perhaps at mutual social events, or they find an excuse to run into you. You'll notice that they're hovering, but not fully engaging. It's their way of saying, I still want to be connected to you, but without the risk of putting their heart on the line. Why do they do this? Because to them, asking directly feels terrifying. Their deepest fear isn't just rejection. It's exposing themselves emotionally and having it met with silence. So they opt for proximity. They think, if I can stay around, if I can still exist in their world, maybe I won't lose them entirely. This isn't manipulation. It's survival for them. They're caught in a paradox where they want closeness, but they're terrified of what that closeness requires. You might notice this pattern most strongly after you've created distance. Let's say you've pulled back. Maybe you've stopped texting as much, or you're finally giving yourself permission to move on. Suddenly, they find a reason to message you, to check in. Maybe they ask about something mundane. Did you ever finish that book you were reading? Or they'll send something random like, this reminded me of you. And you're left wondering why they'd even bother if they don't care. Here's why. For them, silence feels like abandonment. Even if they pushed you away, they don't want the door to close completely. So they dip their toes back into your life, not enough to risk rejection, but enough to maintain that invisible thread of connection. You might interpret this as half-heartedness or indifference, but to an avoidant, it's actually them fighting in the only way they know how. What's tricky is that this behavior can be deeply confusing. On one hand, you feel their presence again. They're texting, liking your posts, maybe even asking to hang out. But on the other, they're not saying the one thing you need to hear. I want you to stay. I'm afraid of losing you. You're left in this murky space where you're trying to decode what their actions mean. And the truth is, their actions are their words. This is their way of saying, please don't leave me. Sometimes they won't even reach out directly, but they'll find ways to remind you they're still there. Maybe you see their name pop up watching your stories on social media, or you get the sense they're checking in on you through mutual friends. They're orbiting you because they're terrified of being forgotten. It's their silent plea. I'm still here. Don't erase me yet. But here's the part no one tells you. You can't take their hovering as a reason to stay. You can have empathy for their fear of intimacy while still protecting your own emotional well-being. Recognizing their subtle signs doesn't mean you have to put your life on hold, waiting for them to grow. It simply means you now understand the language they're speaking. The hardest thing about loving an avoidant is realizing that they are often screaming on the inside while whispering on the outside. Their presence in your space, those little texts, those casual run-ins, are not random. They are deliberate acts of closeness filtered through fear, and yet, unless they take the leap to move beyond these breadcrumbs into real vulnerability, they can't give you the kind of connection you deserve. So if you've noticed this in your life, if there's someone who seems to pull away but never fully lets you go, it's not because you imagined their care. It's because their actions are revealing what their words never could. They're begging you to stay, but they don't yet have the courage to say it out loud. And that's the moment where you have to decide, are you going to let their quiet signals keep you tethered, or are you going to step into your own power and choose someone who can meet you fully? Because sometimes the most loving thing you can do for someone who can't express their feelings is to leave space for them to figure it out, even if it means walking away. You might not even notice it at first. It's not some grand gesture, and it's certainly not a heartfelt speech begging you not to leave. Instead, it's a quiet little message that pops up on your phone. Hey, how have you been? Or maybe it's even more subtle. Just checking in. It doesn't seem like much, does it? But in the world of someone who is avoidant, this is huge. See, avoidants aren't comfortable with vulnerability. They've spent most of their lives building walls to protect themselves from emotional pain, and asking someone to stay. That feels like opening the door to the very thing they fear most, rejection. So instead, they test the waters. They send out these little feelers to see if you're still there, to see if they still have a place in your life without risking their pride. When they send that, "How's your week going?" message, it's not because they're dying to know about your work meeting or the coffee you had with a friend. It's because they're terrified that your silence means you've moved on. And so, in their own quiet way, they're reaching out to keep that thread alive. They don't want you to think they don't care. But they also don't know how to say, "I miss you. I don't want to lose you. Please don't go." So instead, they'll say the safest thing they can think of, just checking in. And here's where it gets tricky for you. Because if you don't understand this dynamic, it's easy to interpret those small messages as meaningless. You might think, well, if they really cared, they'd call me, they'd ask to see me, they'd fight for me. But avoidants rarely fight in the way we expect. Their fight is quiet. It's subtle. It's a text at midnight because they couldn't sleep, wondering if you're still out there thinking about them. Sometimes they'll even mask it as something casual. "Hey, I just heard this song and thought of you." But what they're really saying is, "I'm scared you've forgotten me." That's their way of pulling you back, of keeping a toe in the water without diving in. It's not ideal. It's not how you want to be loved. But in their mind, it's safer than silence. You might also notice they won't let the conversation die easily. If you reply, they'll find ways to keep it going. Even if they're the ones who pulled away before, now they're trying to create a spark again because the thought of losing you completely is starting to sink in. They're not ready to say, "I want you back." That would require them to confront feelings they've spent years avoiding. So instead, they offer these crumbs of attention and connection in the hope you'll take them and not walk away. And here's the heartbreaking part. For some avoidants, this is the loudest they know how to scream. To you, it might feel like a whisper, barely enough to hold on to. But to them, this is an act of courage. They're fighting their own fear of intimacy every time they press send. But you have to ask yourself, is this enough for you? Because recognizing these signs doesn't mean you have to settle for them. It doesn't mean you should lower your standards or keep chasing someone who only gives you scraps of what you deserve. It simply gives you clarity. It shows you what's really going on behind those small messages so you can make a decision from a place of understanding, not confusion. You deserve someone who doesn't just check in. You deserve someone who shows up fully. Someone who isn't afraid to say, I don't want to lose you. But until that person is ready to step forward, don't mistake their quiet attempts to hold on as the kind of love you need. Because at the end of the day, love is not about someone sending you the occasional breadcrumb. It's about someone being brave enough to meet you where you are. You might think that if someone is scared of losing you, they'd come right out and say it. They'd pull you close, look you in the eyes, and tell you how much they want you to stay. But for an avoidant, it doesn't work that way. They're terrified of appearing weak, terrified of being rejected if they open up. So instead, they communicate in ways that are far more subtle. One of the most fascinating and heartbreaking ways they beg you to stay is by trying to impress you, even if they don't make it obvious. It starts small. Maybe you've pulled back a little. Maybe you've stopped reaching out as much because you're tired of feeling like the only one investing in this connection. Deep down, they notice. And even though they may not rush to send a text saying, "I miss you," they suddenly start mentioning little wins in their life. They'll casually drop into conversation that they've been working out more, or they've been promoted at work, or that they've been invited to something exciting. They'll phrase it like it's no big deal. "Oh yeah, I've been really focused on this project and it's going well," but underneath there's a silent plea. "Do you still see me? Am I still someone you'd want to stay for?" What's happening here is they're trying to remind you of their value. It's almost like they're saying, "Look, I'm not just the emotionally distant person you think I am. I can offer you something. I'm worth your attention." But because vulnerability terrifies them, they don't dare come out and ask, "Do you still care about me?" So instead, they posture, they perform. They want you to see them as strong, successful, desirable, anything but needy. And yet, this attempt to impress you isn't about arrogance. It's not about showing off for the sake of ego. It's fear. Fear that you've started to drift. Fear that you're seeing them as someone who doesn't deserve you. Fear that they've already lost you. That's why the effort comes through in these indirect ways. They might suddenly start dressing better around you, putting more thought into how they present themselves. Maybe they'll talk about their future goals in a way they never did before, almost as if to say, "There's more to me than what you've seen so far." But here's what you have to understand. Even though these actions seem confident on the surface, they're driven by a deep insecurity. They're trying to win you over without ever having to put themselves in a position where you could reject them. Because for an avoidant, rejection isn't just painful, it's unbearable. To them, it confirms the belief they've been carrying for years, that if someone sees the real them, they'll leave, so they don't give you the real them. They give you the polished version, hoping it's enough to make you stay. You'll also notice this attempt to impress often happens when they sense you're slipping away. It's not always conscious, but they pick up on your energy shifting. Maybe you've started posting photos looking happy and confident. Maybe you've stopped chasing them for answers. Maybe you've pulled your heart back just enough for them to feel the space between you. That space is terrifying to them, even if they don't admit it. So they scramble to close it in the only way they know how, by showing you that they're still worthy of your love. But here's the catch. As much as these gestures might make you feel seen for a moment, they're not enough on their own. Because while they're trying to impress you, they're still not being real with you. They're not giving you the emotional intimacy you need to feel safe in the relationship. And unless they're willing to take that risk, to drop the performance and let you see the vulnerable parts of them, this cycle will keep repeating. They'll keep pulling away when things get too close, then trying to lure you back with breadcrumbs of attention when they feel you slipping through their fingers. The real tragedy is that avoidants don't realize how much more powerful honesty is than performance. They think that if they just seem impressive enough, you won't notice the walls they've built around their heart. But what most people crave isn't someone who's perfect. It's someone who's present. Someone who can sit in the discomfort of connection and say, I'm scared, but I want you to stay anyway. And maybe in those moments when they're trying so hard to impress you, what they're really asking is, would you stay if you saw the parts of me I'm too afraid to show? Would you love me even if I can't always get it right? But the tragedy is, they may never voice those questions out loud. So it's left to you to decide whether you want to keep deciphering their unspoken pleas, or whether you're ready to walk away and hold out for someone who doesn't make you guess how much they care. Because at the end of the day, you deserve someone who doesn't just fight to impress you, but fights to let you in. You might not realize it at first, but one of the clearest signs an avoidant is desperate for you to stay is when they start mirroring you. It's subtle. It's not the kind of thing that jumps out immediately, but it's there if you look closely. When someone has pushed you away, you'd expect them to stay distant, cold, and indifferent, right? But then, without warning, they start laughing at your jokes again. They match your tone. If you're calm, they're calm. If you're excited, they seem to light up in response. It's almost like they're trying to synchronize with your emotional state, and that's no accident. What's really happening is they're trying to pull you back into alignment with them without having to say it. Mirroring is a subconscious attempt to rebuild rapport, to make you feel safe again. It's like they're saying, look, we're on the same wavelength. You don't have to leave. And yet, they're terrified of being the one to break the silence and admit how much they want you there. So instead, they let their energy do the talking. Think about it. When you first met this person, you probably noticed how easy it felt to connect, how they seemed to get you, how the conversations flowed effortlessly. That wasn't by chance. People naturally mirror each other when they're building intimacy. But here's the crucial thing. When someone with an avoidant pattern starts doing this after they've been distant, it's a sign they're trying to reestablish that connection because they feel it slipping away. They might even echo your words back to you without realizing it. If you say, "It's been a tough week," they respond, "Yeah, it's been tough." If you're in a lighter mood and say, "I just feel like laughing today," they suddenly adopt the same playfulness. It's their way of trying to close the gap between you. It's almost like they're saying, "Don't give up on me yet. I'm still here. I can still meet you where you are." The irony is that avoidants often aren't aware they're doing this. To them, it feels safer to match your vibe than to risk making a big emotional confession that might expose their fear of abandonment. They're so afraid of rejection that they'll do anything to test the waters first to see if you're still emotionally available to them. And if you're not paying attention, you might mistake their mirroring for casual politeness, when in reality it's an emotional lifeline they're throwing out. But here's where it gets complicated. If you're angry, hurt, or withdrawn, they may mirror that too. You pull back, they pull back, they pull back. You stay quiet, they stay quiet. And in that moment, both of you are trapped in a dance of self-protection, each waiting for the other to make the first move. It's why relationships with avoidance often feel like a tug of war. They want closeness, but they fear it at the same time. And yet, when they mirror you, even in small ways, they're showing you they still care, even if they can't bring themselves to say, "I want you to stay." I've seen people miss these signals over and over again because they're looking for something louder, more obvious. They're waiting for an "I love you" or a "please don't leave." But for avoidance, that level of vulnerability feels impossible. So instead, they resort to these quieter strategies that only those who are truly paying attention will notice. And once you do notice it, it changes everything. You stop seeing their silence as indifference. You stop seeing their distance as proof they don't care. You begin to understand that, in their own way, they're fighting for you. Not in the bold, sweeping gestures we see in movies, but in the small, careful ways they know how, by aligning with you, by trying to draw you back in without scaring themselves in the process. And here's the crucial moment. You have to decide what that means for you. Do you meet them where they are, gently encouraging them to step closer? Or do you hold your ground and wait for them to rise to the occasion fully? That's your choice. But don't mistake their mirroring for nothing. It's their way of saying, I'm not ready to let you go. Even if they'll never find the courage to say it out loud, because sometimes the loudest cries for you to stay aren't words at all. They're the quiet moments when someone's heart is screaming and their body is doing everything it can to keep you close. It's strange, isn't it? You spend so much time believing that this person doesn't care, that they've emotionally checked out, that they're already halfway out the door. But then, just when you start to pull back, just when you finally begin to find your strength and distance yourself, you notice something shift. It's subtle at first. They ask more questions than usual. Their tone changes. Maybe they even make a passing comment about someone else you've been spending time with, as though they're trying to figure out if they're being replaced. That's the thing about avoidance. They're masters of emotional suppression, but they're not immune to the panic that hits when they realize you might actually be slipping away. You see, when someone who's avoidant starts to sense that your energy is no longer fixed on them, it activates a part of them they've been trying so hard to keep hidden. That part that desperately wants to hold on. It won't always come out in a direct way. They're too guarded for that. But it leaks out in little moments of jealousy, in flashes of reactivity that seem out of character. Suddenly, they're commenting on your plans. Oh, so you're going out with him again? Or they joke about how you must be having a lot of fun without them, but the smile doesn't quite reach their eyes. It's a giveaway. A tiny crack in the armor they've built around themselves. What they're really saying in those moments is, don't forget me. Don't let me become replaceable. I don't know how to ask you to stay, but I need you to. And it's heartbreaking, because their fear of vulnerability keeps them from saying those words out loud. Instead, they express it through resistance or irritation, hoping you'll decode the real message hidden underneath. This is why you have to look deeper than the surface. If you only listen to their words, you might think they're annoyed with you, that they don't care what you do or who you're with. But if you pay attention to their behavior, you'll see it's not indifference. It's fear that they've already lost you. Fear that they'll wake up one day and you'll be gone for good. The challenge for you is this: not to get pulled into their emotional chaos, because the moment you start over, explaining yourself or trying to reassure them every time they act out, you lose your balance. Their unspoken fear becomes your responsibility to manage, and that dynamic never leads to a healthy relationship. The truth is, they're showing you that they care in the only way they know how. It may not be perfect, it may not even be healthy, but in their world, jealousy is a desperate signal that they want to keep you close, even if their pride won't let them admit it. You have to decide what to do with that information. Do you stay and try to build a bridge to someone who hasn't yet learned how to love out loud? Or do you walk away, knowing that you deserve someone who doesn't wait until they're afraid to lose you to show up? Whatever you choose, remember this. Their jealousy isn't proof of love, it's proof of fear. And unless they're willing to face that fear and grow past it, the cycle will keep repeating itself. Don't let their unspoken desperation keep you stuck in a relationship where your emotional needs aren't being met. You are not responsible for teaching someone how to hold on to you. If they want you in their life, they have to be brave enough to say it. Not just show it in fleeting, reactive moments when they're scared of losing you. Because the truth is, if they really want you to stay, it shouldn't take you leaving for them to finally realize what you mean to them. And here's the part that so many people overlook. The moment where an avoidant is silently begging you to stay, even as their words and actions seem contradictory. They leave emotional doors slightly open. You see, avoidants aren't great at direct vulnerability. To say, please don't leave me, feels like standing naked in a storm to them. So instead, they drop breadcrumbs, small, almost careless comments like, maybe we'll go there someday, or if you're still around, we'll figure that out together. They don't come out and say, I want a future with you, but those little hints are their way of keeping hope alive, keeping a foot in the door so it doesn't slam shut forever. These moments are subtle. You might hear them in passing and not even realize the weight behind them. But to an avoidant, those tiny comments are huge. It's like a tiny crack in the armor they've built so carefully, a moment where their fear of losing you briefly outweighs their fear of closeness. And if you're not attuned to it, you'll assume they're just being casual,